excited that the Estelle Klein Award is going to Sadie this year. Because I think what it does for us is it reimagines what the definition of folk music is, who sings it or who creates it, and the function. Let's re-examine the function of folk music in our daily lives.
Sadie is a carrier of culture, and the Estelle Klein Award is about carrying culture. It's about moving culture forward. Sadie at one point said that nobody taught me anything, everybody taught me everything, right? And that, in effect, is why she's such a fantastic nominee and such a fantastic recipient of the Estelle Klein Award, because she comes out of this tradition and she knows that tradition. She has lived that tradition. But she wasn't afraid to take that tradition and then move it out into the world and let that tradition find out where it lives in the world.
The Six Nations Women Singers are an offshoot of an organization called the Six Nations Women Singing Society. And singing societies are through every Iroquoian community. And the job of a singing society is to fundraise, to help, well, not always fundraising, but to help people who are in some kind of distress. It comes from a principle in our Haudenosaunee world, as it's called Gandown, and that's the closest English translation is compassion. As the Six Nations Women Singers, we started fundraising that way, and we charge a fee, and then that fee gets donated back to the Singing Society. So then that was a way and it was a very popular way for us to keep our coffers full and to keep them pretty full, like to be able to really donate a lot of money out to the community.
Because I don't think a lot of people realize that there was an Aboriginal women's tradition in singing. I think we're all pretty familiar with the powwow band, and especially in Western Canada, you're familiar with the powwow band, which is a very powerful male kind of thing. But the women seem to be in this dance role. And although Sadie points out correctly that there is no difference between song and dance, you know, they are both the same thing in their tradition. We in the West tended to think of song as being this more male thing.
Sadie was responsible for inspiring a large number of Aboriginal women. You know, there was a time in the history of this country where our songs and our dances were, we were shot for singing them or dancing them. And so, you know, it creates a generational memory in the body where there's a difficulty in regaining your voice when in the muscle memory of your body and in the generational memory of things, you know that it was against the law.
When somebody will tell me a story about, you know, the Six Nations Women Singers, like simple things, like we performed in Owen Sound for a women's group one time, and my son was maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. I'm singing away, we're right in the middle of the performance, and my son comes running up on stage and he says, "Mommy, Mommy." And I was singing, you know, I bent over and we ended the song, and he said, "I want to go play with those kids. Can I go play with those kids?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." I said, "But stay in the room where I can see you. Do not go out of this room." So he said, "Okay." So he went running off, you know, and he went running off down, and the audience exploded. What they were cheering at was that what I was doing as a performer did not in any way at all impede my son coming up to be my son.
She took that group to places like the inauguration of Bill Clinton, took it to the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics. Elements of her style with that group end up with Robbie Robertson and his recordings.
Well, Robbie's from Six Nations, so he wanted to do a CD. The Unity Stomp dance is one of the Six Nations Women Singers. People really, really enjoy that performance. And when people want us to go and perform, like for instance, we went to Norway, that was what they really wanted the song they really wanted us to sing. So, and that was the same thing with Robbie. He really, really liked the rendition that we do of it. That's kind of how we ended up. We ended up on his video, we ended up on his CD, you know, that kind of thing. And then from that, then they wanted us to perform that song at the opening ceremony of the Salt Lake City Olympics.
Robbie Robertson was his mother was a Mohawk Indian. He spent summers with her at the Six Nations Reservation.
So we went and we spent a week rehearsing the one song. I really didn't need a week of singing the same song, but.
You know, the great thing about Sadie was that she was also very open to some of us from the Toronto community who were really just wanting to sing. So a few of us would make the trek down to Ohsweken where the Iroquois women singers were singing, and she would invite us in and we would have an opportunity to sing with the group. But then I had the opportunity to work with her at Banff on a number of occasions. Sadie was responsible for helping to design and create a program called Aboriginal Women's Voices.
Aboriginal Women's Voices were women from all over North America, and how I wanted it was I had this idea of these senior artists, masters, women singers. And what I did was have younger women. So we had a group of, I think, 10 total, 5 masters and 5 younger singers. You know, I was really, really very honored to have sat with those ladies and sang. And then to impart to the younger singers the potential of what they could learn was phenomenal.
And then out of that idea was born the concept of a recording and a CD. So several of us came together from all over, all different nations, and offered songs, and then we recorded the CD, which is Hearts of the Nations, which was the recording that went on to garner a Juno nomination in the Aboriginal category.
The Open Hearts concert that they did in Calgary at the Max Bell was one of the most amazing spiritual experiences, the spiritual musical experiences of my life.
One of the things was Aboriginal Women's Voices, which is also the offshoot, what evolved into Bones, an Aboriginal dance opera. You know, and the story of Bones is really based on a lot of ideas of Haudenosaunee work. But it's not either. It's inclusive of a lot of Aboriginal, indigenous cultures from around the world. So it's not just Haudenosaunee, but the ideas that we wrote on, the ideas we talked about, and how we fixed them into the story is basically Haudenosaunee. Oh ma bema, oh ma bema. The main theme song in Bones says Oma Bema Ne Emase Oma Sespa, and that means Earth baby, come and exist with me in love. And so Oma Bema and Oma Sespa, that's human beings, but over here it's love. So if we don't do that, if we don't love our earth, then we don't love ourselves.
And so she created this language that really encompassed an emotional capacity that wouldn't have been possible in English.
Well, you know, when I think about that now, I always think, yes, the idea of another language is I'm like, why would I even think that I could write a language? You know, like where does that idea come from? And I guess that comes from the whole idea of I can versus I can't. You know, it never occurred to me I couldn't, so I just did it. Oh, ma se